exceptionally, probably the most emotional time that I'd sort of lived in my policing service.
It was a huge piece of evidence. The prosecution case has been that we see that note as a confession. I don't think there's anybody who has worked on this investigation who will come out of the other side the same person they were.
Lucy Letby has become one of the most infamous child murderers in UK history.
She was an average 20-something-year-old with a job, a friendship group and a social life that you would expect. She was normal in that respect.
The former nurse had access to medical equipment and medicines that she would misuse to make tiny babies sick and unexpectedly collapse.
She used that normality and the trust that she gained through being an average 20-something-year-old to commit crimes of an unimaginable scale.
This is a story from inside the police investigation, as told by the officers involved. We now know the full extent of Lucy Letby's crimes, and we also know the huge impact that bringing Lucy Letby to justice has had on the men and women working on the case, and how from the very start they've had to park their emotions to one side.
I was working on the Western Syndicate, the major investigation team at the time, which covers Chester and the Countess of Chester Hospital. So I was asked by our then head of crime to look into a letter they'd received from the Countess of Chester Trust to discuss a spike, if you like, in unexpected and unexplained deaths and collapses within the neonatal units.
It was that letter which led police to ultimately open the investigation into the deaths and sudden collapses of babies on the neonatal ward, and then to the arrest of Lucy Letby in July 2018. By that point, she was their prime suspect.
So that decision was made to declare suspect status and tell the parents, and to arrest Lucy Letby and conduct searches at her address to again see if we could find anything that may be able to answer this question. We were still very open-minded. We were still yet to receive any pathology.
It was a huge milestone, but there was an overwhelming feeling of sadness at that point, in that we knew what we were about to embark on. Some of these families were grieving for their children, for their babies, and then we told them that during that grief that actually there was a suspicion around what had happened to their baby. I can't imagine how that must have felt for them at that point.
Searches of her home in Chester and her parents' house in Hereford uncovered hundreds of medical documents, patient records and handwritten notes that gave clues about her state of mind. Among the scrawled notes were the words, "I killed them on purpose because I'm not good enough," and "I am evil, I did this."
It was shocking. The prosecution case has been that we see that note as a confession. And so it was a huge piece of evidence to find.
Other evidence was found stuffed in bags and in internet searches, even a picture she had taken of a sympathy card she had written to a bereaved parent. The police analysed her shift patterns. Look at the line of crosses on this chart. They showed that Letby was the only member of staff on shift when all 25 incidents took place.
All the way through, the key aspect of this investigation has been always asking ourselves, who else could it be if not her, and what else could it be? And only when we were left with, there is now no alternative, and that very sad reflective moment really of understanding that these babies have been harmed, and however hard we've tried to find alternatives, we haven't. We've been left with inflictive harm.
2 years after her first arrest, Lucy Letby was charged with murder and attempted murder. And those years of getting the case to that point, the searching, the quest for justice, has left a life-changing toll on everyone involved in this case.
There is usually, following the gaining of charges, a celebration, if you like, by the team, because you've charged somebody and it's starting the wheels of bringing people to justice. When the charges were read out in the briefing that we'd secured from the Crown Prosecution Service, there was nothing. There was silence. It's that realisation of, my God, somebody has taken the life of these babies, and somebody has been responsible for these life-changing injuries to these babies.
But even now, with a conviction and a successful case behind them, the senior investigating officers in this case are missing a crucial piece of information.
The one question we haven't answered is why. I don't know whether we will ever be able to answer that question, and only Lucy Letby can answer that. I hope that I don't work on anything like this again in the future.